Following the forced resignation of Kirstjen Nielsen as the head of the Department of Homeland Security, the New York Times is reporting that the Trump administration plans on firing or at least forcing out other individuals within the department. Government officials who asked not to be identified discussing personnel changes before they were announced said at least 2 to 4 more high-ranking figures affiliated with Nielsen were expected to leave soon too. Now, behind the scenes, as we've spoken about before, you have an immigration hardliner like Stephen Miller pushing the president to do away with people within the department that he views as hindering Trump's policies or stopping Trump's policies on immigration. Officials said they expect to see the departures of L. Francis Cisna, the head of United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, Kathy Newbel-Kovarik, one of the top deputies or his top deputies, and John Mitnick, the department's general counsel and a senior member of Nielsen's leadership team. Also, the White House is pressing for the resignation of Claire Grady, the acting deputy secretary, who under law would normally fill in for Nielsen. So Trump did not want Claire to fill in for Nielsen. Trump has already chosen McAleenan, who we talked about yesterday. And so this is interesting because of course, you're gonna get some worry from the left, but it appears that there are GOP lawmakers who are not happy with what Trump is doing. And they're very much concerned about the impact of Stephen Miller behind the scenes. But before we get to that, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this story, John.
Yeah, look, in the case of any of these particular officials, I have no dog in any of these fights for any of them. I'm sure they were awful in their own way. I'm sure they're gonna be replaced by somebody who's even worse, if they're replaced at all, because Donald Trump's new MO is to just have acting officials in a lot of these positions. It's simpler for him. He doesn't have to actually showcase their ideologies in front of Congress. The people and our elected representatives don't get a say, so it works out very well for him. What bothers me more is what they'll be replaced with as a philosophy. So his issue with Nielsen and others were that they weren't tough enough. Well, they're the people that were throwing kids in cages. So in terms of what they were doing, it seems pretty tough. That's not the word I would use, but I think he would. What he wants is for them to break the law. And Kirstjen Nielsen apparently didn't want to do that. I'm not gonna give her much more credit than that. She did throw the kids in cages, but so he is throwing out these people who won't break the law to presumably be replaced by people who will, or will at least allow him to. So
your interpretation is correct, and this story reminds me of an op-ed that was written by a woman who actually worked with Trump and the Trump Foundation for a very long period of time. I apologize, I forget her name, but she talked about how Trump would, on a regular basis, expect workers to do things that were unlawful, and if they didn't carry out his demands, he would retaliate in some way or the other. And she recounted this one story where he wanted the Braille taken out of the elevators at Trump Tower, which is illegal. You can't do that. You have to have that accessibility for people who are blind. And so when one of the workers pushed back on him for refusing to do that, he retaliated in some way or the other, if I can remember the story correctly. But the whole point of that op-ed was to point to the fact that Trump, on a regular basis, expects the people around him to break laws. He has absolutely no interest in the rule of law, ensuring that he's doing the right thing. He wants people to do what he wants to do, and if they don't follow through, they pay the price. And I feel like at this point, people who surround him in his administration should be aware of that, and they should stop pretending as if their position of power is like some permanent thing. At some point, you're gonna cross Trump because he's gonna demand something of you that you just can't fulfill because it's illegal.
Did we cover the story yesterday about him talking with the border officials in his trip to California and apparently telling them that if a judge tells you to let these people in, tell them no, there's no room, just don't do it?
I think Cenk mentioned it, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then they had to later go to their superiors and say like, is he really asking us to break the law? And they were told, no, don't actually do that because you'll have personal liability. I think that it shows that his strategy is, look, I had 2 easy years where we had control of everything. And even then, the courts sometimes would oppose me. And now the Democrats they're really, they're bothering me. And so I'm done with abiding by the law. I've already long ago bid goodbye to norms, traditions, and things like that. Now the law as well, and in particular, whatever courts end up saying about my policies. And so, like, if he's telling border officials in a public place where there's sources that could conceivably leak it, that they shouldn't abide by court decisions, I mean, what is he saying in conversations with Stephen Miller? When he gets his new team up and running, and then they start, family separation 2.0 or whatever, and a judge, hopefully, fingers crossed, strikes it down, if we're that lucky, what is he gonna stop doing it?
I don't know.
Why would we believe that at this point?
Well, yeah, and you bring up a legitimate concern because there is reporting indicating that Trump wants to continue the child separation policy, and the GOP is starting to push back on that. So I'll give you an example. There's Senator John Cornyn, again, a Republican from Texas, and he says, quote, "One thing that we all agree on now is families ought to be kept together as much as possible." Now, I want to note, there has been strong talk from congressional Republicans in the past, and then their talk usually fizzles out and they go ahead and support whatever Trump wants to do. So while I might give Senator Cornyn some credit now, talk is cheap. What are you gonna do to actually put that talk into action and push back against Trump if he does continue on with this policy?
Well, especially Cornyn, who's gonna be up for re-election. He's not gonna turn against Donald Trump.
Also, Senate Homeland Security Committee Chairman Ron Johnson said he is concerned with a growing leadership void within the department tasked with addressing some of the most significant problems facing the nation. And that has been an issue, especially with the high turnover in the Trump administration. And then finally, I wanted to mention the head of Secret Service, who was also recently fired. So he was fired, and I wanna clarify something that we talked about yesterday. I mentioned that he was fired in response to a woman, a Chinese woman, getting into Mar-a-Lago with malware. But that is not why he was pushed out. Apparently, Mick Mulvaney, the acting chief of staff for the Trump administration, had talked to him before that, well before that, and told him, let's start getting ready for, you to leave and for a transition to happen. And so another interesting tidbit from the New York Times was that Trump on a regular basis would berate him. Trump was convinced that as an outsider, Alice was not popular among the agents. The president even made fun of the director's looks, calling him Dumbo because of his ears. I mean, we have a child in office. And I don't know what else to say about that. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. Okay, so
wake me up in a couple of years. Actually, maybe not. Make it like 20. It's such a pathetic time.
I know, it's devastating.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.